Cheers, allies. It is Monday, September 16th, 2019, and this is your Cup of Jones. Cheers, everybody. What's up? Let me know if everything looks okay and sounds okay. And let's run off with this episode of Cup of Jones. There's no need to wait. There's no need to slow down because it is review season. Finally upon us. We have reviews up for Gears 5 Astral Chain, Creature in the Well. Thank you, Don, for the Gears 5 review edit. Thank you, Brad, for playing Gears 5. And then Ben, of course, on Astral Chain and Blood on Creature in the Well. It's fun to move from one writer to another writer. It's fun to cut a Ben review and then immediately after cut a Blood review. But have more reviews in the cooker. And I reviewed a game. I reviewed a game over the weekend, actually, and I finished that review script and I sent it to Blood. And that should go up this week. So I reviewed a game. The last game I reviewed was Blood and Truth for PSVR at the end of May. And so it's been a while since I reviewed a game, and that was very fun. I was happy that game was short. So I was able to do that over the weekend, and I'll be editing that hopefully today, maybe tomorrow. We did reactions to TGS stuff. If you haven't seen that, I was a bit unsure last week, specifically who would be in the office and how we'd be setting that up. But thank you, Huber and Damiani and Ian and everybody else who came in for... I think we can officially say Damiani's reviewing Link's Awakening. I usually leave it to Blood to talk about specifically the rest of the projects people are working on, but I know Brad is basically working on one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing this month. Group stream tomorrow night is the Sega Genesis Mini, which I'm excited about. That's what I wrote down. I don't know if that's officially what that's called, but excited about that. Cheers. I think that's like an absolutely perfect setup for a group stream. And walking through the front door right now is Sophie Dog, Amanda, and Milo.
Milo?
The trio.
Oh no, I left him at the park.
He's at the park. He decided to stay there. One of the new gags that Amanda and I have going with raising Milo is whenever we put a distance between ourselves and him, like he's over in the corner of the room or something. We just imagine like. She came in and he was on the back porch the other day, and I looked at him through the window on the back porch and just imagined as if he decided to go out there by himself, on his little baby legs, just kind of walked out there and then saw the little cozy cushion and got on it, Anyway, back to work. The Prison of Love has been shot. We recorded the first episode of that. Don is putting that together, just like he put Syndrome together. That will be a Don Casanova and Michael Huber joint. But excited to see he had some fun things, how he set up. I don't know if you missed the first episode of Don's Design Lab, which went up, which is not the first episode, but the return of Don's Design Lab. And it's absolutely fantastic. And so I'm excited to see what creative ideas he has in putting together. Just a lovely amount of polish on anytime he works with Huber. And we're shooting Achieve It Yourself today. We're doing it in 2 waves. I'm in wave 2. I go in tonight to subject myself to Achieve It Yourself, which I have not done before. And I'm actually kind of terrified. I was excited. I'm like, I'm going to be on Achieve It Yourself this time. And I was like, oh, wait, that's like a strictly performance-based show. Oh, no. I don't know if I'm going to do well on Achieve It Yourself. Nobody wants to be that one episode of Achieve It Yourself where we don't do it. We don't achieve it ourselves. Oh, boy. But I'm excited. I'm going to be in season 2 of that. Excited to say, let's jump on over to this lovely screen. I don't know if you can tell just bam by looking at it why exactly I'm clipping over to this image. But this is the cardboard graveyard is gone. Is officially completely gone in the corner of the studio. So I'm extremely excited about that. We had people come in and just pick it up and move it along. The problem was, we had a bit of cardboard there, and then some of that cardboard would go away, and then more cardboard would come back. But it was manageable. It was in the corner. It wasn't taking up too much space. And then we had our big equipment, and we picked up a bunch of equipment before E3, and then before that we picked up a bunch of furniture before E3. I was very excited about all of that, but all of that, it's very cloudy today. It's funny. Cup of Jones is now very reliant on a particular type of weather to maintain itself, but it's a little overcast. But we had E3, we picked up all that stuff, we got all that furniture before, and we had specifically just a couple of really, really big boxes that I would store all of the other cut-up cardboard inside, but then that stuff lived just in a row in the corner. and then E3 happened, and then I had a baby, and so a lot of that stuff got delayed. And then I got approval from the guys to just like, put a little bit of money aside just to have people come in and pick up all that stuff, and they did. Speaking of spending money, we've spent a fair amount of money. We got new graphics coming in for Trader Jones and Friend Code, which haven't premiered yet. We got questions about those as expected coming up, we have are picking up equipment also for shows and shoots that we plan to do in the future. One of those is the occasional board game show, and we talked about having technical issues with one of our recorders last week, and so we picked up all of this wonderful, all of this equipment. We got down below. That is our Blackmagic HyperDeck Studio Mini. That is the thing that is on the in front of Ian when he records the podcast. There's also one of them in the main studio room. When we record the podcast, we already do 2 backups in case one of these machines fails. One is the wide shot. So what you would lose is basically all of the updates that Ian is doing live, putting the camera on himself, bringing in different angles and stuff like that from the studio. We have never needed that, actually, so it's frustrating to have had technical issues the other week, and then they involved fail-safes that weren't working, whereas the ones that were working, we've actually never needed since we moved into the studio, or since I think we've recorded in the garage. Ian's always given me that backup, and I've never needed it because the first clip was always okay. Sophie apparently wants to be on Cup of Jones. Sophie comes over, and Sophie's like, "Hi, Sophie, what is your piece of equipment?" She clearly is favoring the. I'm sorry, we got. Oh wait, I didn't actually write that down. We got the power lens, but this is a. I didn't write. Hold on. Actually, bring this up in real time because I can go to my. Yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough for Sophie. What is that thing called? What is that camera called, Ian? That is the Micro Studio Camera 4K. So that's what, that's what this guy is. And that is what is going to be hanging from the top of the studio and enabling us to play Magic the Gathering and more primarily do the occasional board game show. And so that's something that I know a lot of people are anticipating because, out goes Tabletop Escapades, in comes the occasional board game show. And as we expressed when we talked about Phase 4 stuff, it's going to be tricky to really produce lots of those episodes for multiple reasons. One, it's hard to set up board games in general. It's hard to learn them and set them up and teach them to a group of people. So that is going to take time. And there's just a lot of logistics with, props and, icons and lighting and, moving cameras around. I know that's something that Ian wants to produce, but then again, Ian wants us to be very much involved, so we might need to bring other people when we do those shoots. I don't know how many of those episodes we can shoot in a day, so there's a lot of that stuff that we have to figure out, and this is the beginning of purchasing that stuff. And this guy over here, the Panasonic Lumix GX Vario 45 to 175 millimeter power lens, is going to help us, make that shot look really nice, because we don't know. It's tough when you set up a camera that's up straight up looking down because you can't move that camera around. That camera locked in its position, and so the lens really has to do a lot of work. And all this stuff is interchangeable. All of these cameras we can move around. We were thinking if we weren't going to get one of these cameras, we were just going to use one of the other cameras, but then we would lose that camera if we wanted to set up, getting, close-up reactions to everybody as they're playing the board game. And so it's fun to put all of that together. It's fun to spend money, but we spent a lot of money this month. We're already putting some other stuff on the list. Oh, and down below, this is our HyperDeck our third one that we own now that will replace the buggy one that went kaput last week. Not kaput, really. It still works. It just doesn't work 100%. And Easy Allies, we're all about 100%. So we're now going to, try to get that one fixed, but we now have a replacement for it. Yay. So there's all that equipment. Equipment's great. Very excited about equipment. Let's look at this week's schedule. Boom. Thank you, Danny Bloodworth, as always, for putting this together. Cup of Jones is today. Mysterious Monsters is today, and always premieres on Twitch. Gundam Building, which I saw people very, very, very excited for, is also today. Gundam Building returns. Thank you to the boys for coming in to the studio and doing that. As I mentioned, I love this back-to-back Genesis SNES love. Tomorrow night for a group stream, we will all gather and play Genesis, but then Dawn and Ian will gather on Wednesday night to play the SNES Menagerie. You might notice that there is no Mike and Mike. There is no Mike Huber, Michael Damiani stream for Wednesday. One of them is out. We've been fortunate with the Pokemon Silver streams that Kyle and I have been available, but it might happen that Kyle is busy or I am busy, so some of these streams might need to take a week off. And floated around to the rest of the crew if anybody wanted to step in. I joined Mr. Michael Huber for a stream, but I certainly would love to have Wednesday to work on other projects. So we won't be doing that stream, but we still have stuff going on Wednesday with the SNES in response to our gathering together to play Genesis games. Don and Ian will play a bunch of Super Nintendo games. Trials of Mana continues this Thursday, along with weekly hunts and Pokemon Silver, which has been one heart attack moment after another. For me, personally, I don't know about for you. I don't know if that stuff's entertaining, I tell you. And then Thursday night, Link's Awakening comes out, and Damiani wants to celebrate, so 9 p.m. He will be doing so. And, of course, the podcast on Friday and Friday. Blood Pact is on Friday. I believe the votes are in when I checked Patreon last, but I will let Blood talk about that. I don't know if Blood's on. I haven't seen Blood in chat today. And, of course, Kyle Makes a Game Boy Game, a stream that I have never watched, know absolutely nothing about, is on Friday. And there we go. There's the week. Enjoy it, everyone. Business questions. Take it away. Cheers, everybody. Brandon K. Gann, inspired by EZA podcast number 178. Would EZA consider having just the recording of a single podcast or show pre-post production for patrons? I love pre-post production. Only as a comparison to what you start with to the final product of the same recording. For example, 1 month could be a recording of a single Achieve It Yourself with its final version, and the next month's exclusive would be a single easy update, etc. And these exclusives can be called something like show name behind the scenes or unedited show name. We actually talked about this during Phase 4 because, and somebody, I should have lumped these questions together. I apologize. Now that I say that out loud, I realize that they are relevant and basically are asking the same question, which is, can you just, we want stuff to be a little more raw. Or we at least as patrons want exclusive access to that content. We want to see what it looks like when you make mistakes. We want to see what it looks like when everything is just kind of like laid out, of course, for Achieve It Yourself and for Prison of Love, which are going to be sit-down gameplay sessions that will be edited down to a manageable length. Blood Pact poll doesn't close until Wednesday. Blood Pact poll doesn't close until Wednesday. I believe everyone in the Blood Pact probably knows that, but in case you don't. And in case you don't know what the Blood Pact is, it's a higher tier where you get to play games with you get to pick what Blood plays and then play along with him and then talk about it. Which I love. That'd be great. Oh, Jazz is a tad loud. Why is the Jazz? All right. Boom. Sorry, Jazz. Or it just fades out at least. Yeah, it always fades out, but yeah. I had to move some USB cables around and I plugged everything back in. My mic is just doesn't go the distance. It's just not like loud. And so I have to drop everything. So generally Cup of Jones is quieter and I don't know why. There is a like threshold raising you can do on XSplit that I haven't really messed around with. I did do audio tests this morning. Sounded okay to me, but sorry if it is too loud. Cup of Jones is evolving. A lot of the guys aren't super excited about having a raw state of themselves posted. Like there is kind of a comfort level when it comes to knowing what is going to be recorded and what is not going to be recorded. Unless you're Michael Huber and you don't really know that a lot of times. You're like, oh, were we recording right now? Huber always feels like he's recording or not recording. But this did come up because Kind of Funny does a live stream before they shoot the podcast. And Kyle was like, that's a very stressful time for me. Putting all that stuff together, I really want to be focused on making that show good. And getting all that stuff. He's like, there'd be a lot of things we would blame on, like, oh, well, we were streaming before, which is why I wasn't focused on that, because we were all trying to entertain for the stream. And that's kind of what's tricky about like a raw, quote unquote, raw nature. Like once you introduce the element of something still being live, still, it's like what we're doing right now won't be in the episode, but is still, you are still being recorded. Like if you walk by somebody's house and it's like, you're on camera, it'd be like you are. What you're doing right now is being recorded, and what you're doing right now will still possibly get to our fans and still be watched by people. Then it's kind of like we're always on, and that is very tiring. And so, not to mention when the case of when we talked about Prison of Love and other things that we might record and then cut down. Achieve It Yourself, which we're doing today. Again, it is just another repackaging, another amount of work for that producer to be putting that stuff together. But it is something that we talked about, and I think we might test that moving forward with long form recordings that become short form shows. But I think in terms of doing any kind of like the podcast was a weird case last week. And so when you talk about having like a raw version of the podcast, you're pretty much watching the podcast. If it looks like there was an edit on the podcast, it's either because we broke embargo by saying something or somebody had to go to the bathroom, or it's just like a very not exciting thing. Like you would just see someone get up out of a chair and then we would sit there looking at our phones and then we would pick the podcast back up. So Easy Allies podcast, I don't know if it is good in a raw sense. But this did come up, and some of the shows that I mentioned are evolving. and as evidenced by Mysterious Monsters now having like a live premiere, like the launch and the access that you have to these shows might change moving forward. So we will take that suggestion to heart. Excuse me, a little smoothie left in there. Alexander Zirianov, do you plan to keep your current office internet connection as a backup? No. Or is it just too expensive to have two connections simultaneously? I think it's too expensive, and I think it's messy, and I'm not even sure if it's possible. But I know that we don't plan to do that. Matt Brookbank. Oh, Amanda, are you busy? Matt has a question for you. Matt Brookbank with a question for Amanda. Amanda's doing her own live show right now. She's in another room doing her own cup of Amanda for a different group, Schmeezy Schmallies. I don't know if you follow them, but which she also does on Monday mornings, which seems oddly inconvenient to me. I don't know why she does that. Dale Payne, I'm curious as to what types of metrics the Patreon gives y'all in regards to how many people become patrons and at what dollar level per week, month, and what the trends are. I asked this because I was curious if you saw a bump in patrons when you have done videos with Game Explained, Greg and Tim coming over, and you going over to Kind of Funny, etc. Cross-pollination of fan bases effectively. Yeah, that's mostly happens on like Twitter and YouTube. People don't necessarily come find us, meet us for the first time, and then give us money right away. We notice more stuff based on our exclusive show promotion. So Achieve It Yourself, the spoiler modes. Nobody becomes a patron for Cup of Jones. Maybe somebody will give us a buck. Are there any EZA shows that you would like to be invited to as a guest and which you haven't been on yet? And are there any what you would like to be invited back to as a repeat guest?
Is that a question?
That's your question.
Well, I wasn't listening to the first part of it.
Any shows you'd like to be on that you haven't been on it yet?
Mysterious Monsters.
Which we're working on.
I want to get back on Fiasco Nuts.
Mysterious Monsters is the answer. Amanda wants back on Fiasco Nuts.
Let me come in here.
Nice shirt.
Thanks, man. Tokidoki. Yeah, I want to be back. I want to be on Mysterious Monsters, which that would be fun, and Fiasco Knots and Spouse Quest, but who knows because we have a baby now.
Yeah.
So it's like Family Quest. And I want to do some other storytelling stuff if I can. With some of my improv
Possibly
gals.
improv stuff we've talked about.
You all know Jessica Lanverdi from some guests on Fiasco Knots, and she was in the.
I think she was on Mysterious Monsters.
Yeah, she was on Mysterious Monsters. She was on what was the musical again? The cowboy musical called?
What? I think it was just the Western musical.
No, it wasn't. It was called
That's what Ian
Redemption.
Always. That was what Ian always called
Redemption, something like that.
Ian always just called it the
No
Western
Redemption.
musical.
No Redemption. I knew I was close.
He literally named that like the day it went up. He
Yeah.
never called it. He always called it the Western musical.
Yeah,
So
no.
what is
So
it
No
called?
Redemption. But so
Yeah, more
Jessica
musicals.
from that. So I'd like to do more stuff with Jessica and maybe some other gals from my improv troupe. Some storytelling things, but we'll see if that's a practical thing.
And we're doing the occasional board game show, which you would probably love
Sure. Yeah.
if we were able to get a babysitter.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's all about my acting schedule too, and whether or not I have
Right.
time. But I'd like to. I sure would like to. Plus, there's Milo.
Plus
There's Milo.
Plus, there's Milo. That's his theme. Welcome to
And he's
previously
right-
on
he's
Plus,
right-
there's Milo.
He's right here, being very pleasant, but I need to.
Wah!
I think he's got
That's kind of what an episode of Plus, there's Milo would
some surprises for me.
be
in his
about.
diaper, so I'm gonna go
Surprise if you in his diaper.
Yeah, I don't know what it could be. It smells bad. Lots of possibilities.
Yeah.
Could be eggs.
Good.
Could be
Surprise, Mom. It's eggs.
could be a frog.
All right. But yeah, that's when Blood is the person that looks the closest. Scoop of True Pipe. Let's see if Blood answered this Patreon question. Blood is the one that looks at our Patreon numbers closer than anybody. Blood's the one that passes on when there are events or changes to everyone in Slack. And the comment I see the most from Blood is that spoiler mode is the largest driver in terms of actual patronage. Because there's tons of metrics. There's, a metric which is very hard to quantify is just, do you know we exist? Do you know Easy Allies is a thing? And so we measure that by a lot of return comments whenever we put up reviews, and we'll see comments from people like, wait a minute, I recognize these people, or wow, these reviews aren't bad. Steve S. Too late now, but in the future, would the Allies be interested in reacting to certain non-gaming events like today's Apple press conference? Maybe one day when our schedule changes, a year or two from now. But we're not necessarily. It's tough. We're not necessarily like hungry for more things to react to. Billboards in LA when? So asks Uzi Suicide. I don't know. I don't know if those are I think those I've heard that those are just to like placate like actors in LA. Those are literally just so actors can drive by and be like, I'm famous, and they don't actually do anything. Straw Hat Ninja, I know you said you took care of a good spot to hard cut the podcast if there was a power outage in the future. My question is, do you guys have UPSs or battery backups generators? Bloodworth answers, I thought Jones addressed it, but we do have UPS systems. I didn't specifically get into that. My apologies. The audio recorder wasn't plugged into one, so the problem's already been solved. Boop. Fiji Junkie, just watched both times you talked about it, but when you were covering the power outage, I don't think you actually ever mentioned that you were going to, what you were going to do to prevent losing content like that moving forward. Maybe I missed your explanation. Getting a battery backup emergency power supply should solve that and let you safely close out any projects. Did you say you were going to do that? I think I said it. The stuff wasn't plugged into the things they should have been plugged into, but we do have battery backups. I don't believe we got more. I just think we reconfigured them. If we're interested, we're interested, but I don't think anyone cares about Apple conferences. There's also that. Well, just the idea of non-gaming events. You know, sure. We've met for movie trailers before in the past, if they're big enough. I believe, at least on solo streams for them. Daniel Garza Andrade, I got to know, how do you feel about the Dunsparce? Was it good? Was it unexpected? This might seem like a personal question, but this is business related because this is pertaining to our last episode of 2 episodes ago of our Pokemon Silver stream, episode 2, where we did in fact catch the Dunsparce spoilers that we weren't able to catch in the first episode. I feel like it'll be revealed at the end of this Pokemon Silver stream that it feels like a bit this whole time because there's been so many emotional highs and lows. You know, I might seem kind of, you know, not into it at points. I might seem kind of distracted, but I'm just like shell shocked, man. There's so many things going on in that show. So was it good? It was very good. Was it unexpected? It was extremely unexpected. The shiny was even funnier last episode because I didn't even know it was happening at the time. And I kind of know what shinies mean, and I'm still not 100% on what the heck shinies are. But that's the beauty of us playing Pokemon together. Dunsparce has been overshadowed by Shiny Joey. That's not true. Screaming Argonaut. Morgan Wahala. As Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas and New Year's approach, are you or any of the allies planning any festive themes for events for your content? We always do a Halloween stream. That is around the time Luigi's Mansion is launching. So there you go. That kind of writes itself. Hopefully, if we are have access to the game, and I believe it comes out that day. And I don't know if that's the day we're streaming, but yeah, we usually do that, and we usually gather for. We might decorate the studio a little bit for Christmas, but we usually gather, make a big deal out of the last time we stream, and then we do Game of the Year when we get back. And for New Year's, we don't necessarily do anything for New Year's, but there's a lot of projection content, us looking at the head at what is going to be an incredible year, 2020, as we get into next gen and play a lot of games that we were very excited to play. Like Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is basically what I'm talking about. Is this allowed, or do you try to keep EZA holiday neutral? Not really. This seems like a simple way to get new viewers interested with seasonal content that they may have otherwise passed on. I could be wrong, and this may not be the best use of time and resources, but I can help. But hope for something special from the channel during the holidays. Yeah, we also try to do content that will be around while we're not. So in December, we try to shoot stuff ahead of time. These expectations are always way loftier than they actually turn out, than reality, because the year is ending. It's right at the end of review season, and so there's just a lot of projects. And with a business like ours, we're all equal partners, so there's not we can't pass off our projects to other editors or other producers because we're all doing our own stuff. And so whereas at Game Trailers, we actually had more of a system in place to produce things, so that stuff would just continue. You'd be like, hey, it seems like people are in the office. Sometimes people were like, I'm not going home, or I can update the site from home, and so I'll just do stuff while I'm for Game Trailers while I'm gone. For us, we work very hard throughout the year, and so we have found over the holidays we kind of give ourselves that time. But kudos to people who still put stuff together. Ian does that a lot. Ian definitely hasn't missed an easy update, I think, or has worked hard not to. But we still do stuff. I think Halloween, though, is the biggest, we are definitely celebrating that holiday. We don't do a specific Thanksgiving stream. We gather together, right before we leave for Christmas. And again, we kick off the new year, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a New Year celebration. It's all about Halloween, baby. Got to think about my costume. I have no ideas. No ideas. Tweet Halloween costume ideas at me if you want to. Asbo Zapruder, if Phase 4 of Easy Allies was one of the Schuler sisters from Hamilton, would it be Angelica or Eliza or Peggy? It would be Angelica. Taco, with the new not full group streams in the studio, 1 or 2 people, I was wondering if it would be possible to get closer camera shots. I watch most streams on my phone, and it's sometimes difficult to see any reactions when the camera is still attempting to accommodate a bunch of people that aren't there. Apparently, the close-up Pokemon Silver streams have spoiled me. Yeah, this is a twofold thing. One, it's on the people producing. I might want to kick Ian to get that camera in a little bit closer. But then again, you know, there's a method to all of Ian's madness. And also, we just have a big camera in there. And so we've talked about one of the big cameras that we had previously that we would use to shoot everything, lived in when we first got into the studio. That was like our main camera in the studio. We have since purchased new cameras, and that camera has moved into the streaming stage, which is great because it's a nice camera and it makes the shot look nice when we go full screen for things like Hall of Greats, but it's a big camera. It's a big camera on an old tripod. And so clearly the streaming room is set up to make it cozy for a big environment for lots of different types of streams. If we want to do, VR in there, if we want to do stand up, if we want to do some kind of motion gaming or anything, there's like a lot of flexibility that we have in that room. Or clearly the budget for having nice cameras, lots of cameras, the switcher, a bigger mixer, all of that stuff is geared towards the main, studio stage where we record all of our podcasts. A goal for the future is to have that in the streaming room as well. Have a mixer in there. Actually, there was a brand new product that was just released that Ian was like super excited about. It's like $500, I think. That is like a little mini switcher. And again, it's not something we quote unquote need right now, but it would give us a lot of flexibility. It would make stuff a little bit more exciting. Possibly if we wanted to bring in people to manage that switcher, so just Ian and Damiani wouldn't constantly be off camera. We could get them on camera, have somebody else managing that stuff. And get these, wonderful little Blackmagic cameras that are small enough that we can have on a tiny little tripod. And then for some personal things, for like community showcase and other things, we could have that camera in front of the television like we do for the Pokemon streams. Because in Pokemon streams, it's not only about having the camera in a different spot, it's about the actual size of what we're playing is so small that we can move it to the left side of the TV and have the camera in front of the television because it's not blocking anything. We couldn't do that for group streams because it would block the game that we were playing. So, we will evolve, we will change, we will modify that room. And yeah, I think we should always be as close to the people as possible. And we will, that is a point. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the next thing we're going to buy or even the thing after that, but it's on the budget list. And it's something we want to spoil ourselves by investing in the future. Louis Sandiford, is it possible to trim the Cup of Jones YouTube video after it's been uploaded onto their servers just to avoid the pre-stream title card and get straight into the show? Bloodworth answered this for me. It's possible, but arguably more work than it's worth, as it would require downloading, re-uploading, and replacing the Patreon link. Plus, any chat archive would be gone, as well as comments that were left during the processing time. Considering it doesn't take but a few seconds to skim to the front, it's not particularly efficient to take an hour or two to go through that process. I agree. That's why I put the countdown in there. For audio listeners, might be like the what down. I trim the countdown. You don't get the countdown if you listen to the audio version of this. But if you watch the video, you get a little jazzy theme that takes you in, and then a 3-minute counter. Hopefully that helps people when they're watching the video to tune in before, because I know some people not only were like, when does it start, but would jump on the live stream and be like, it says it's live, but I'm looking at a static thing. What's going on? And the countdown's just a nice. There's lots of blood conversations going on. Let me catch up. Cup of blood really quick. And just a general rule for Thumber for reactions, the decision process basically comes down to, do 3 people want to do this? No, then we don't do it. We've definitely done some 2-person reactions. We do predictions in January. I booked my Christmas travel this weekend, says Bloodworth. Congrats, Blood. I've done it for like 37 of 39 years. That's just Christmas. I'm assuming means going home. Uzi asks, how's Christmas in Florida? Blood goes home to Florida. And Blood is, Christmassy, ? But you got to go to the beach when it's warm. I love Florida in the winter. It's nice. We just want a mini switcher in the stream room for stuff like weekly hunts. That's the other thing too, is the idea of playing like Destiny 2 weekly hunt stuff where like there's a lot of us in that room right now. No one's behind the camera when we shoot that stuff. It's everyone involved in weekly hunts. As far as I know, I haven't been around for weekly hunts in the studio, but it's basically the people. It's kind of like we do the Pokemon Silver stream. No one's behind the camera. It's just Kyle and me. And so that might change in the future. That'll obviously cost a lot more money, and we need to buy that equipment first. But it would make those streams better, period. Max and Pugo, where do we go? So many great questions. Bradley Spees, is the stream room comfortable for these kinds of multi-streams? They're very fun from the viewer's perspective, but is it enjoyable on your end? Blood, we definitely squeeze in a lot of extra stuff, but it's not uncomfortable to play. Maybe hard to get up and go to the restroom. There's a very specific note. Sergey, I thought you can trim videos via YouTube website editor, so no re-upload is necessary. And Blood, that feature is long gone. So yeah. We don't, so basically that's where I put in the countdown, so that helps video people for all sorts of reasons. If you're watching it after the fact, there's literally your countdown, and you can see, boom, jumping in. Maxim Pugo, business suggestion, live podcast for the $20 or another tier like Kinda Funny does. I should have put this back above. We talked about it. That was the thing. We talked about it Phase 4, and people desperately want to have that time before the podcast. There's, because we put the Easy Allies podcast forward as kind of one of like our flagship shows. I think the Easy Allies podcast and reviews and our reactions, I think are like the three things people discover from us first. And so we really want those to be like, oh, by the way, we're Easy Allies. And so we can maybe do things live, but Kyle doesn't want to do the podcast, and the people who are on the podcast, including me, didn't seem like that was something we really wanted to do. But we do it every now and then, for E3, and then possibly for other events, we might do a live podcast. Rappy, have you considered putting a watermark or lower third with information on interviews? Someone tweeted a certain clip of Damiani's last Final Fantasy XIV E3 interview, and it went viral, and there's no way to see EZA itself in the clip. Now, the person probably meant no ill will, as they did include a link to the YouTube vid in the tweet, but seeing as they clipped out the video itself, who is going to bother to click that link or check out EZA or the link that the vid wasn't his? I know interviews aren't that, if you haven't seen this, is the one where he's like, oh, nightmare, where he says, would you do with WoW Classic? Would you do with Final Fantasy XIV what they're doing with WoW Classic, where you would have the original servers for Final Fantasy XIV? And the director of Final Fantasy XIV is like, hell no, we're not going to do that. It's a really great moment if you haven't seen it. I know interviews aren't that common, so it's not a huge current issue, but that viral clip might have done wonders for exposure. That's funny that you mentioned that, because I never thought that was us, because the way that interview was handled, there were multiple people in the room. And so for interviews like that, you like set up your camera and then you go somewhere else and you ask questions off cam. And then it's like when you see like somebody come out of a courtroom and there's just like 1,000 microphones all pointed at them. It's like, everyone's here. When they walk away, we will all have basically interviewed, quote unquote, this person. And then Damiani just happened to ask that silly question. And so actually a lot of people posted that on their own because they were also in the room and you saw that question being, asked. A lot of people, when I saw it, I didn't see Damiani mentioned specifically. So like when I didn't see the watermark or any indication it was Easy Allies content, I didn't even think it was our video. That is something to keep in mind. Just like a watermark, I guess, maybe for interviews. I don't know. You never know what's going to go viral. It would always amuse me back at Viacom, and they'd be like, we want to make a viral video. I'd be like, oh, do you? That was definitely Damiani. I don't think it was a round table. I'd have to look it up. I just know that there were multiple people in the room because you can hear other people laughing. You can hear like other reporters laughing. And the vibe I got was that it was posted by somebody who was in that room with Damiani, who heard Damiani say that. But I don't know. Maybe, again, this is all might be me projecting all of this. But it's something to keep in mind. And I added it as a takeaway. Jesse Blue, do you have a date set for the first new Trailer Jones to release, and what's the release plan for the first few after that? I want to the goal right now is to get it done before the end of the month. It is a back and forth process. Sometimes it's on me, sometimes it's on Chris and Joe, who are putting our graphics together, who are also putting your graphics together for Friend Code, and of course also doing other jobs, and just finished putting new stuff together for Cup of Jones. And so we'd like to get one for Trailer Jones, and then I don't know if I want to put up 2 trailers in 1 week, but I definitely want to come back very, very soon with another episode because I'm hungry to do those. Wolf himself asks specifically, could we get some updates on Trailer Jones? TGS got me thinking about it. And James Vest says, I was wondering if when you do the first Trailer Jones in the new format, that you would cover any of the past trailers. For example, the horrific 2K20 trailer that talked about my team that caused a lot of people to get up in arms, and the wonderful Terry and Smash trailer. There's also Cats, which is recorded. I know every time I say Cats, Blood's like, please don't post that Cats video. Please don't post that Cats video. It's been 2 months. But I also sat down with Brad Ellis, and we talked about Star Wars. We talked about Episode 9, the last trailer that neither of us liked. Dun, dun, dun. The Star Wars trailer we didn't like. I don't know. There are ways we can like sneak them onto our channel. I might talk to Blood about that. But we really should just bang out a bunch of new trailers and just kind of like have a clear reset. The actual structure of Trailer Jones looks really great. I want to show that stuff, but I love the reveal. I want to save it for kind of like how it's going to work. For those that don't know, there will be a video component to it, but you will not see us on camera. So it's something that we don't need to go into the studio to do. So then I can turn around episodes faster. It's kind of like the whole point about this new version of Trailer Jones. The last time I saw Trailer Jones graphics was yesterday, and the logo was updated, and a lot of fun new ideas were introduced with the latest version of the logo. And so now I had some ideas about how to change that. And so it's my dumb fault. If I had just been like, yes, print it, let's go, I could have maybe posted an episode today, but we want to make a couple extra tweaks to the graphics, so working on that right now. And apologies, I thought about maybe like posting like a teaser thing here, but I was like, we'll save it because a lot of that's changing, and I don't want to show it and then have you see it later and then be like, oh, I liked the old version actually. I don't like the new version. Like the version you're going to get for Trailer Jones. Are we getting any thoughts about the D23 special look for Rise of Skywalker? That was the video I recorded with Brad. I might put up, I mean, it exists, so I might just at least put up that audio for you to enjoy, but we'll see. And thank you for checking in for Trailer Jones. It just graphics are always a frustrating time because it's like you said, you have a date set. It's like almost impossible to set a date unless you work on getting those graphics way in advance. So when we do know we need stuff for that, those graphics are often figured out well in advance of the stuff that we do that we need the graphics for. Same song for Trailer Jones, yeah. But I'm gonna see if I can actually like spruce that song up a little bit. Add a couple little instruments in the background. Alpesh Varsani. Final question: have you and Ian? How we doing on time? Yes. Have you and Ian thought of a timeline to start producing your non-stream videos in 4K, 260p? Or 2160p. It may be a placebo effect, but it seems that YouTube videos uploaded in 2160p look better, fewer visible compression artifacts when the 1080p version is served. Alpesh, the reasoning behind all sorts of weird states of compression on YouTube and audio syncing and all it's not placebo, man. There's weird stuff going on that website. I can recall Ian's musical was in 1440p, and there have been a few other videos in 4K. As long as the editor, CPU, GPU, HDD permits, it would be great to have more of your catalog future-proofed, especially when video game capture is not required for shows like Spoiler Mode, the upcoming board game show, Mysterious Monsters podcasts, etc. That actually brings us to what will probably be one of our next purchases. Is definitely very high on the list right now of stuff that we want to get, and that is a computer that lives in our office, basically. So this is not something we stream on. This is a computer only used for editing shows and capturing game footage, so that if Ben is on a show in the morning and then we're doing our Pokemon stream and then he's on the podcast later, he's like, well, I'll go get some food or something, but it'd be nice, if I have my Switch, I'm reviewing something on my Switch and I don't need to capture it, I can play that. But if I have this PC, I can jump on it, I can capture it. And then we can also do that in the streaming room if nobody's using it. But it's just like if both stages are, what was nice, what was like a rush was the first time that we streamed something in the streaming stage and then shot something on the main stage. And I was like, yes, like we're being so productive. And now it's like, wait a minute, what if we can capture a game at the same time and 3 people are all working on separate shows simultaneously in the studio? Don has a laptop, he brings that in. Ian has a laptop, he brings that in. Kyle has his laptop. Be nice to have a computer that just sits there and does its thing. So I bring that up because one of the other things that we do in 4K sometimes is when we have big events. When we go to a preview event, or when E3 rolls around, or we go to meet with a dev to play a game, and we get footage that's in a 4K. And so if it makes sense, then if we're incorporating that into a preview or something, we might post that preview in 4K or we might post that gameplay in 4K. So you might see some of that moving forward, especially if we have resources like this. Like you're like, as long as the computer's good enough, well, if it's during E3 or something like that, if we have a computer and potentially another person at that station working on that, then we can have way more of a focus on reproducing that footage that we get from interviews and not just kind of like throwing it at our live coverage or interviews as fast as possible, so we can get that up as fast as possible and you can enjoy it as fast as possible. But at the same time, like you said, it's speaking of placebo effects, it's wonderful to have 4K. It wouldn't, we talked about metrics a little bit earlier. It's not going to move metrics in a way that was suggestive of really what Easy Allies is all about. I mean, like if we, we're not, I want to see we were talking about Game Explain, so Game Explain is the only thing that came to mind. But those guys that do specs for everything, we're not IGN, we're not GameSpot. Like we're not we're not those places that will have first looks a lot of times on a lot of this crazy stuff. And so if you see our coverage, our editorial voice is obviously I think the most important thing that is added to that. That's what a lot of people subscribe for. It's a lot of what people show up for. And then if you want the crystal clear footage of that game, it's not a hard thing to find on the internet. So I don't know if people necessarily I think it's a matter of putting our best foot forward, making our work look as good as it can, and not necessarily something that we need to do as a resource for gaming, gameplay, and news and coverage and stuff like that. Let me start again. Is a dark mode possible for the EZA site? That's interesting. Website dark mode. I'll put in takeaways. Website dark mode. Website dark mode. Who are those guys called? The guys that do like tech tests. That they're like, hey, look how this thing runs on PC. Maybe there's just like an just absolutely crazy delay with Cup of Jones. Digital Foundry. There we go. Sorry. Digital Foundry. Everyone's going to answer now. Digital Foundry. Digital Foundry. Thank you. Yeah, dark mode's great. Maybe we'll do that in the future. Okay. Thank you for the business questions. For editorial, I'm taking a question from Mr. Robert I. Thank you for submitting the question. Let's kick off our editorial, which is hopefully not too loud. Red Sky asks also, what happened with the Kingdom Hearts 3 bet punishment, which is on Kyle, I believe. He has to recreate a cutscene. I honestly will give Kyle a pass to finish Season 2 of Box Peak before he does that. Fidgetal Doundry. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, Kyle has to... something in the first 15 minutes, or he has to take 15 minutes of a cutscene from Kingdom Hearts 3 and recreate it like one of the in-progress Devil May Cry 5 cutscenes. So it's like Kyle running around cardboard and fake props and stuff like that. I want to see that. You want to see that, obviously. But I think it's more important for the company to get Box Peak done. And then I will get on his ass. Robert I. Let's say EZA doubled its Patreon amount next month, and it stays above $96,500 the rest of the year. Come January, I'm curious. What is the priority of expansion for EZA? And to fit in the jettisoned question, Robert I. was writing a question before and then reposted. At which point is EZA's editorial staff expanded? So I just want to talk about reviews for a bit for this editorial. He's waiting on you to select a scene. Oh no. Okay, I still want Box Peak done first, but yeah, I will get him a scene. Because we're going into review season right now, and we're looking at a bunch of projects that are coming up. And not only do you see what everyone's going to be struggling to cover, but you also see what won't get covered. I mean, like things that there's just kind of a perfect storm. And as evidenced by this summer, we didn't have a review for Mario Maker. We didn't have a review for Ultimate Alliance. I did impressions, but I didn't do a review of Dragon Quest Builders 2. And so not only are those big releases that are coming out, but one thing that irked me, that was a bummer to not be able to cover that stuff, is you hear us talking about it. And so I imagine it's got to be frustrating if you follow us for months and months and months. You know, it's like, how much do I talk about Animal Crossing? And you know, if unfortunately there was some life event that prevented me or prevented Easy Allies from covering Animal Crossing, it would seem weird to our audience to be like, why would they talk about it so much? And then we would get close to review, and then they wouldn't review it. And so it always brings up the idea whenever we get into a review season or whatever, we see something go by like that, you know, how can we increase our editorial presence? How can we review more stuff? And a lot of this stuff has been considered, and a lot of it just doesn't seem like a natural fit for Easy Allies. We talked about, you know, possibly bringing in freelance writers, you know, possibly bringing in other people producing content. For a lot of reasons. One, it's we really want that to be a full-time position. It seems weird to bring in somebody just for one project and then not have that person be like, cool, can I get another one? And we're like, well, not really, you know, it doesn't fit into our budget for that month. And so it's nice to talk about bringing in people on a project by project basis now, but a full-time employee, bringing in somebody full-time to carry the same amount of responsibilities that each individual ally of the 9 carry right now, it's not something we can afford. It's not something that it would be worth someone's while. And, you know, there's also the idea of, you know, the fact that we're producing all the same content that we're producing while we're doing all of these reviews. And so it's been interesting moving forward, you know, and definitely different from game trailers over the years, to consider how, I know this is basically me talking about our editorial content. I'm sure Blood's blood is boiling right now, because he's like, oh God, what is he going to say? But we are, you know, like I said, we're spending so much time, you know, meeting, you know, previously the goals that we had up on Patreon. We're spending so much time working on the other shows and streaming. And, you know, back at Game Trailers, there wasn't a lot of options. We had a show called Just Played, actually. I don't know if you remembered it, but that Andrea Renee used to be on. That would cover a lot of things. That was basically Frame Trap. Like it was a segmented Frame Trap. It would cover a lot of games that we were just basically checking out, but we didn't have time, you know, to get into. And then we did streams, but we don't stream as nearly as much as we do now. And, looking at the schedule and looking at the stuff that we're covering this week, looking at all these opportunities that we have with the stream team and, as I mentioned before, with Blood Pact, where you get to pick what he plays, with me not being able to review everything I want to do, but still being able to cover games. I just did a review this past weekend, but I still have other games that I am checking out that it's interesting. It's been interesting, mentally moving forward since we started Easy Allies to have Frame Trap in mind. So when I play a game, it's like, oh, this is a Frame Trap game. This will be my game that I will bring on Frame Trap, and I can message, Ben and be like, would this be a logical part of the conversation? Ben was very gracious when I was on Frame Trap last time and let me talk about Ultimate Alliance, even though he'd already done a whole episode based on Ultimate Alliance. But so long story short, I am really comfortable with where we are editorially, even though we don't cover every game we want to cover, because we've thought about, as I mentioned, freelance, bringing on full-time employees that are specifically focused on reviews, and just kind of moving towards this pie in the sky dream. Like you said, like, what are you going to do if you suddenly wake up and you have $96,000? And it would be amazing to spend all of that on our review coverage, but it would be a very long. It'd be frustrating for our patrons, because if we woke up tomorrow, or next month, or if there was a very sudden rise, kind of like if you go back and look at our Better Stuff Before E3 stream when we just blew past all of our goals, we're like, whoa, wait a minute. We would love to tell you other stuff that we need to buy, but I would love Full-Time Don so much. Don just, see, I wonder if Don is like a love, for Funhouse that also prevents it too. Like, Funhouse might be Don's family, You got Omar over there, you got Elise over there, it's good people. These used to be GT people, and maybe Funhouse is home for Don. Little Seinfeld Keeley there. So I like how we have this kind of trickle down effect from doing reactions to announcements all the way through, contemplation during the podcast, and then it's released, and then we play it, review it, or stream it, or talk about it on Frame Trap, or possibly do a don't skip on it later as the sun changes and the lighting changes on Cup of Jones. So I think there is a dream that we have, looking at that 96K of a, reviewing every game, like, really giving IGN a run for their money, and just like covering everything, because you'd be amazed, even with all of the game announcements that Kyle likes to cover on the podcast, even with all of the reactions that we do, even with all of the stuff that comes out that we can cover, from going to events and looking at preview stuff and, social media and all of that, I still am just astounded when I check emails, and I'll just be like, wow, look at the 40 games that just came into my inbox today that I won't have time to mention, probably won't remember by tomorrow. It'd be great to cover all those things, but I think even moving forward with 96K, we would, of course, invest in other things. You would definitely see that guest show. That would be really fun. It'd be fun to bring on like full-time staff just to work on that guest show. And, of course, full-time Don. LOL, nobody reviews every game, not even close. Yeah, again, it's a dream. That's why I mean, like, it's a dream. It's like 24/7 Twitch channel to be, have our channel be live all the time. It's a dream, like 24/7 office, basically being able to pay enough people that the allies can still review games and work on the stuff that they want to do at their own pace. But we also have people working in the studio, full-time collaborations with other people. Like, there's just a lot of those goals, a lot of those dreams. But some of that stuff I really think of, and it's a bummer because I'm like, God, I really want to get there. I really want to make that stuff happen. But I guess the point of this editorial is that I really enjoy where we are from an editorial sense. When I look at my life now, especially, and how much time, I have for games and my interest in games, my following, games media and announcements and news and stuff like that, and then being on the podcast, being on streams. It's just a great balance. I look at my work week and, cutting more reviews than I have previously, and then experience it. Like Astral Chain was a really fun review to cut because I got to watch like the first 5 hours of that game. And so it's really great to absorb that content and then play Pokemon Silver, do something a little bit retro, be on the contest, be on the podcast, get updates from everybody, do the community showcase, find out what everybody had played last month, weird opinions about weird scenes from weird Yakuza games that I've never played, finding what everybody thinks of Judgment, and then going on Frame Trap and talking about, my opinions about the games that I've played, and also hearing about experiences from other people, and just generally being around the allies and, hearing them talk about the games that they like. So I'm a fan. And at what point is EZA's editorial staff expanded? It's going to be a while. To answer your question specifically, Robert I. So thank you for that. Thank you for inspiring that editorial. Takeaways. Consider having Raw shoots as Patreon exclusives. Woo, sorry. Need to wet my whistle. Move the camera closer when there's just two people on the streaming stage. We also talked about, just the general equipment improving in there as time goes on. Tokyo Slim says Yakuza opinions are the only opinions I care about, and yet he watches this show every week. Watermarking interviews? Question mark? Think about it. When is it time for non-streams to go past 1080p? I don't know. Might be a while. 2020 is next gen. Easy A might go next gen in terms of our resolution. And website dark mode. I just added right at the end there. I love it. Thanks, everybody. I should be back next week. Again, man, under an hour. I'm also definitely seeing a reservation in terms of people asking questions. I think we've definitely got to a streamlined point. I don't know if people are streamlining their questions or if we will get to another surge of questions down the road. We'll get comfortable with this version of Cup of Jones, and then we'll get Cup Bloat. But Cup of Jones and 8K. I mean, if you keep sponsoring Easy Allies and we keep going and this rocket keeps going into the sun, we will definitely get to 8K Cup of Jones at some point. That is the goal. This is great. I had a good time. Again, I will be, I'm going to go cut this interview or cut this review when I want to get the script and then go shoot some Achieve It Yourself tonight. And then tomorrow night, we're going to play a bunch of Genesis games. I will see you next then. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Cheers, everybody.